Hello everyone, my name is Sandra from Tip Top Sewing, and today I'm finally filming a new video, which is what I've been sewing. And I'll start this new series of videos with the dress I'm wearing right now, which is a Simplicity 1587. I'll tell all about it a bit later, but I'll start with a fabric, which is a Telalinda viscose. And if you've never heard about this brand before and you like vintage, retro, 1940s, 1950s sewing, I would highly recommend you to check it out. I'll leave the link in the description down below. So Telalinda is a small fabric business run by Linda, and she gets her inspiration from 1940s, 1930s fashion. So I picked Dolores, which is a very beautiful floral 1940s style fabric, and by the way, all the fabrics in her collection are called after family members, which I thought was a very sweet touch. So in the beginning the fabric feels a bit more stiff than it is after a pre-wash, which obviously is a must for any viscose fabric, and after the pre-wash it becomes extremely silky and soft and just very drapey and very lightweight. And the quality of this fabric is really nice. For example, I always check before I cut my pieces, I always check the fabric for any tiny holes, because it's a very common thing for any natural materials like cotton or viscose, but I was really pleased to see that there are no holes on this fabric. I was also very happy to see that this fabric didn't leave any red marks on white and yellow parts of the print, because it's another thing that happened to me before with natural fabrics that have a lot of red in them. And just like any other thin viscose, this fabric requires a lot of care when you work with it, so I would highly recommend to use really thin, really fine needles, or maybe even ballpoint needles and pins as well. I used ballpoint pins and needles, and I thought that was the best choice for this type of fabric. I really liked this print. It's a very bright and very cheerful, but at the same time it's very classy and elegant, and it has a very strong 40s vibe, which is something I obviously really liked. Here at the background I have some swatches of other Telalinda fabrics, and I really liked all of them, but I especially liked this cornflower blue fabric with leaves, I guess, or florals, and I think it's really nice and really beautiful and delicate print as well. As for the pattern, it's a very unpopular one, which is a bit surprising, but at the same time not really, because it does have some issues. But as you can see on the picture, which I'll put somewhere here, it has a very beautiful design and it looks really nice in the model, but it still is a very tricky pattern. I would say that the main issue with it is that it's pretty much impossible to get it right straight from the envelope, which is something a lot of people tend to do. It does require some serious adjustments, and the main one is that, surprisingly for the design, this pattern runs really big, so the sizings are really strange. They have a lot of room in them, and that's something that you can't really have on the design like that. So I went 2 sizes down from my typical Simplicity size. So if you believe that you know how to sew Simplicity patterns and you have a size that fits you really well and you believe that's the one you should use, forget about those judgments and just pick the right size based on the final measurements that are printed on the pattern pieces itself or on the back of the envelope, but I think it's only bust measurement, but still check them and don't rely on the old measurements that worked for you before. Another thing that probably most of us would want to change is the neckline. As you can see, mine isn't exactly the one that is supposed to be there, because it's so tiny. Like, I understand that it's a vintage reproduction pattern and it's normal to have a really modest neckline, but that wasn't just modest, it was uncomfortable and simply impossible to wear it, because it was so small. Not only it was uncomfortable, it was basically pulling the shoulder seams, so it was completely like destroying the design and completely destroying the whole idea of the dress. And obviously the waistline was also completely dislocated because of that, so I had to simply add 1 centimeter all around it, and I think that's something that worked the best for me. I also took in a bit in the back of the dress, in the central seam where the zipper is, and I also still, even though I went 2 sizes down, I still had to take in a bit in the waist, because it was still a bit too loose for me. Another thing to remember is that this dress has a very drapey and a very like pleated skirt, and it has to drop before you hem it. So I would recommend to let the dress drop at least overnight, or preferably like 24 hours before you are going to hem it, because it does drop a lot. Like when I did it in the back, it was pretty much perfect, but at the front it was much longer than it should be. There is another thing about this pattern, is that obviously the arms and this area is much tighter than the modern patterns are, so if you find it uncomfortable, then you will probably need to make it a bit bigger. I didn't change it because, well, I like the vintage style of it, but if you would find it uncomfortable, that you don't have enough movement here in shoulders and all around your arms, maybe you'll have to adjust it as well and make it a bit bigger. So yes, I'm really happy with how this dress turned out, and I would highly recommend to use this pattern, even though it has a lot of issues, and I would truly highly recommend to check out the fabrics from Telalinda if you've never checked them before. They're really great, especially for dresses like these, which is a vintage reproduction one, or just a vintage dresses in general. If you would like to see more pictures of this dress, you can follow the link in the description down below to the blog post, where I have lots of pictures about it and a bit of a description as well, and all the links to the fabric obviously and the pattern. And if you'd like to see pictures of what I'm sewing right now, or of more of my projects, you can follow me on Instagram at tiptopsewing. And if you would like to see more videos, you can subscribe to my channel as well. So see you next time, bye!